Welcome to Warblog, and today we're going to look at the Central Logar Province, Afghanistan. It's an interesting setup. There's nothing sort of particularly there's nothing particular about this other than it's sort of a current event, and that's why it's been included. So that's sort of more its objective. But I think when I put it together, I thought, well, this looks like it's got some interesting aspects to it. Essentially, when I actually say that, what I'm sort of really getting at is that essentially the Afghan forces are trying to clear this area of the Taliban. What actually happens is the Taliban then ambush these Afghan forces as they're sort of doing that, and there's a firefight, and you can read about that in the link. But essentially, the interesting aspects are sort of beyond the actual, the sort of news side of things. For example, there's no objectives. So really, the objective is to clear this area. So essentially, you've got to go out there and get rid of these Taliban units. But I think the point I'm really trying to get to is that these units, I've got the mouse tool on, I don't know why now, are just 113s. This is the only one that you've got that's a 6. So this is the only one that is sort of, going to be able to drive all over the place. So what we've got here is a sort of fairly fast task force. So you don't have to worry about any of these objectives. The Taliban aren't really aiming to take these objectives out. And so even the position at the river is really irrelevant. You could go across the river or down here. But somehow you've got to go down here and create some kind of strategic plan of action to sort of deal with all these Taliban units. And the Taliban, conversely, are looking to ambush these units somewhere, whether it's there, or there. So in theory, they could get all of these units and try and sort of do something like that into a sort of some sort of central thing, but the central sort of conflict or position of assault. But the Afghan forces clearly are not going to want to sort of let that happen. But the thing is, in that sort of game of cat and mouse, they have greater mobility that can be used. Now I think what you might find is these irregulars can only really move 1 or 2. These will be able to move 3 or 4. So should be able to outmaneuver things, but what will that have in the constraints of this relatively small map, I don't know. Or whether or not the Taliban won't be able to escape. Now, one of the things that I think will add to that dimension is that it's split up into 3 companies. So 2 motorized and 1 mechanized. And as a stack, there were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as a stack, they're actually fairly strong on their own. There's virtually nothing that the Taliban can do, and even if they were to sort of move to one position here and the Taliban were to completely surround them with 4 units, it would still be a 1 to 2. So they're never going to really have those sorts of great odds. But if they leave themselves stacked up, they're possibly not going to be as mobile as they might want to be. and when I say that, for example, if we were to split up, obviously one of these units would be on its own. You know, there's no way that you can split this force up without something being on its own. It's just impossible. So if we wanted to if we were here, for example, and we wanted to take out this unit or to force that, we might want to do this. We might want to go here, here, and here. And this would sort of force a retreat, but it would almost maybe block this, you know, as opposed to just sort of going after it directly. So you'd be able to sort of control where it went and things like that. But doing that, you would obviously then put yourself at the risk of being counterstruck by this unit here. Pretty much only this unit, because you could pretty much guarantee where these units will be. So, for example, in this situation, you probably wouldn't do this one here. You probably wouldn't put yourself there because you would be at risk of being attacked there. But here, that's not going to happen because you can only get to there. So you could probably move to there, there, and there. Now you might not necessarily want to do that because if you've got 7 against 1, you're always going to have that 7 to 1. But so you might want to just move into 1 hex and get the 7 to 1. But then they would be able to retreat to there, there, or there. So you might want to sort of somehow get that position and or somehow constrain the retreats and things of that nature. Now I'm not saying any of this is really that important, but these are the sort of thoughts that I was having when I put it together. I was thinking, well, hang on, it's a bit like, well, we've got the mobility here and they're a little bit stuck, but we can't, you know, unstack, and you know, as I said, it has some interesting aspects to it, but I'm not really sure that, you know, it's phenomenally exciting in that sense. It just sort of struck me as, I wonder what, you know, if I apply a few minutes thinking to what that all means, what that will actually entail. So, our objective is to clear all these units out, and I still really haven't given it a lot of thought. But one thing that's worth noting is that these are in hills, so they're going to be doubled to 2. It is double, isn't it? Was it? It might be tripled. Let me just look. Defense is doubled. So now I think I'm going to keep them all stacked for obvious reasons, and I am sort of thinking aloud here because I really don't know what I should do. I'm sort of thinking I could either go down here and try and take that, down here and take that, or go along here and take that. Now I don't think there's much between the options. I'm just not sure. I think what I'm going to do to hedge my bets, I'm going to go for this central unit here. It's 4.5. I just want to figure out whether these units here are moving slower. No, so they're moving at the same rate. 2.25, 2.25, so it's still moving at the same rate. Yeah, they're not going to get any nearer, are they? Although they're moving differently across desert, because he's got 0.75 left. He's got 0.7. They can't do it. So that's that. Okay. So the Taliban turn. Oh, he's not going to just sit there, is he? I'm thinking. I mean, basically, we sort of need to somehow strike them. So it's not looking that exciting really, because as long as the Afghans stay together, they're almost unstrikable. Move pretty fast through these hills. I'm going to leave him there so he can respond to anything against this unit or this unit, and these units will be able to pincher on that potentially, but it won't be good odds. But the thing is, that's the situation. So they've moved. Okay, so what I'm tempted to do now, obviously knowing the situation, is to try and leverage some of that mobility advantage by now going this way and attacking that unit, which is actually in the open. But I'm not sure we can get there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably won't be able to get there. It would be nice if we could have done that, but I mean, they were there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was using the roads. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if we had the same overall allowance, we wouldn't get there. Okay, so we pushed the balance of play here. Which is oh, that's quite interesting. Of course it's interesting. I'll tell you why it's interesting, because they've sort of put themselves inadvertently in a pincher here, the same sort of thing that I sort of was suggesting that would have been the situation here, because obviously that could have gone like that, that could have gone like that, that could have gone like that. But this pincher could actually equally well happen that way, and I'm thinking that this unit can probably get there. And that's probably about as good as it's going to get. So they've made a mistake getting that close to both of these units. So maybe what they should have done, was move to there, allowing them to somehow come down like this. Although they would have probably moved into the hills, that's something else. So let's see. Ooh, it's taken 2.4. That's 1.2. Oh, it's 1.2, 2.4, yeah, 1.2. So they've got 3 more movement left, but that will leave them unable to attack. I mean, they could move themselves there, but they wouldn't be able to attack. They can move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. .4. Puts them nicely out of reach there. And this one can stay where he is. So I'm assuming none of this has any value. Otherwise, they could take out Logar Airport. That's not, presumably that's not in their interests. So it's a game of cat and mouse, leveraging these sort of hilly mountains or mountainous hills for mobility reasons. So what does that leave them with option-wise? I think there really is only one option. That's to drive into the hills with just one movement left. So this is going to be like a 3-to-1, isn't it? Two to 1, so they've engaged with the Taliban. Oh, right, yeah, because they're defending on 7, obviously, but their attack is only 5. I didn't think of that, and that's a 2-to-1. So maybe they shouldn't have done that, but they've done it now. However, the interesting thing about that position is that it makes it even harder for the Taliban to attack them in the hills. I think we can definitely move him out here. Attrition. Unsuccessful. Well, Afghan Security Forces are going to recover. Yep, so they're now recovered. So the Taliban going to try a bit more attrition. Unsuccessful. Okay. We're going to try some attrition against this unit. Two to 1. I think it's a bit of a stalemate, really, because there's no incentive for either party to move off. There's no objectives sort of open. You know, I mean, I'm sort of tempted to sort of move some of these units out here to suggest that they're moving freely around the sort of this Logar area, the Central Logar Province, but that would then just attract the Afghan Security Forces away to an easier target. You know, so really what we probably need here are some objectives out here that represent a presence requirement. You know, maybe 3 that are so sort of far apart. Maybe 1 here, control of this pass through the hills, control of this, not actually on cities, control of this track here, and then just sort of general control of this inner area. I think I'll do that. With the intention that, see, I'll probably put 1 down here. The road's going nowhere. I mean, obviously it's sort of retro, you know, maybe 1 in this hill here. Put a few to represent sort of the general control of this area, but more so that, you know, whilst the Afghans are down here, the Taliban can be up here regaining control of this hill, etc. So really sort of separating these sorts of things out. But this road obviously has to be corrected. So it's interesting. It's actually, I think that will bring the continued dynamic back to the game, in the sense that, you know, without that, it's sort of pretty much stuffed, because there's no reason for them to move. They're just going to get more and more entrenched, making them harder to hit. So there's no benefit of them moving out and trying anything. You know, it's not as though they can sort of whisk down here and get this unit, you know, whilst it's sort of vulnerable. I mean, I suppose they could maybe try, but, you know, considering they can go 1 desert, 1 into there, that's not going to happen, and that would be a zone of control. You know, these are being entrenched. You know, it's just static there. But I will make those changes, and so when you see it, you'll probably see that. And if you feel like playing it, if you feel like that challenge, then sign up and give it a whirl. I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.